রিক্স তো সাংবাদিকতা মানেই রিক্স, এরকম যে হবে আমি আসলে ভাবছি না আর কি। তারপরে কটা ছবি তুলি, 10-12টা ছবি তুলি, আর এরকম করবো আমি তো আর ভাবছি না যে এরকম। এই যে দেখেন আমার যে টর্চার করছে, আমার বিভিন্নভাবে মারছে, এটা প্রমাণ হিসেবে আমি রাইখে দিছি। এরকম প্রায় 15 জনের মতো লোক আসছে, এসে আমার অ্যাটাক করে গেরা হলাইছে। আসলে সিলেটের যে ফাজিলপুরের বালি যেটা, এটা দেশ বিখ্যাত বালি, যে আমার যে টর্চার করছে, আমি তো আমার যে মা বাবার দোয়ার আল্লাহর রহমতে আমি ভাই এখন বেঁচে আছি, তো আমার মেরেই ফেলতো ওরা।
Sand is so valuable as a resource that people are and have been killed over this.
A 35-year-old journalist was investigating a case of illegal sand mining.
The sand traders are so powerful. They purchase the whole system, so the system is in their pockets.
Sand is not cocaine, it's not guns. That's what makes it so attractive to criminals.
This is something that has a tangible impact on all of our lived experiences, just a matter of how close or far away we are from it.
The question then is, globally, why it's not being policed. We haven't yet got the full picture on this. There's many unknowns here.
Bangladesh is the largest delta of the world. It is a creation of rivers. We consider rivers as our mother. 60% of the people of Bangladesh get their only animal protein intake from the fishes of the rivers. Even today, 1/3 of the total transportation is through waterways. But now you see sand mining taking place all over the country, almost in all rivers. কতগুলো পাথর একটা লোকের মাথায়, না? অবিশ্বাস্য। বাবা শোনেন, এই বালিগুলো কোথা থেকে আসছে?
সাদা বালি তো বাংলাদেশ থেকে আসে।
এটা কি কাজে ব্যবহার হয়?
বিল্ডিং এর কাজে ব্যবহার করা হয়।
বিল্ডিং এর কাজে। আর সাদাটা?
সাদাটাও হয়, সাদার মধ্যে।
There is ever increasing demand for sands in Bangladesh because with the very fast pace of development, we are having many constructions built in every part of the country, even in rural areas. The entire sand mining is supposed to be regulated by law. A particular miner is given a certain part of the river for sand mining purposes. But what happens is, in most cases, they are going much beyond the leased out area and extracting sand from parts of the river that have not been leased out. It is astonishing to see there's hardly any monitoring at the local level. And it is the entire river ecosystem that is bearing the brunt of unregulated sand mining.
The sand I've got here is basically some river sand. So this is some quite coarse river sand. This has been processed, so it's been sieved to make it unimodal in grain size. And I've got some very fine desert sand here. When I first started working on rivers and looking at sediments and sand, I don't think I could imagine that river sand was so valuable. This river sand What makes it so sought after is the fact that it's going to bond well with cement to make good concrete. It's got quite a sharp shape to it, it's quite jagged, because that's what's important when it comes to making concrete. As opposed to this desert sand, which is really smooth and well-rounded. That means it doesn't bond very well, and therefore it's not very good for making concrete. The idea of running out of sand globally, I think, is difficult to wrap your head around because we think of things like the Sahara Desert. But the river sand, that is being depleted. There's no two ways about it. Each year, we're heading for about 50 billion tonnes of sand being extracted. We've got hard evidence and measurements that show that it's being extracted at a rate way above the rate at which it's being replenished. If we're extracting it at a faster rate than we're replenishing it, it can run out.
I'm a lawyer. I'm enrolled with the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. I'm also working as the Chief Executive of BELA, Bangladesh Environmental Lawyers Association. The people I work for, the people I represent in the legal cases are communities being affected by illegal sand mining. When rivers are overmined, they actually lead to virtual deaths of rivers. It causes serious river erosion. And with river erosion, local people have lost their lands to rivers. Their properties, their farmland, their houses, their graveyards, their schools get exposed to be engulfed by the rivers. Sand here in Bangladesh has blood stains on it. About 60% to 70% of the sand that you see in the market is illegally mined. It is thoroughly corrupt.
চাহিদাতে জায়গায় ভালো ভালো সরকারি প্রজেক্ট আছে হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ এই বর্তমান মেয়রের এক বাইশটা পাইছে
The sand miners bribe the entire system that is supposed to monitor them, that is supposed to regulate them, particularly in our part of the world. Now illegal sand mining is taking place everywhere. The whole of Southeast Asia and the whole of South Asia is affected by sand mining. People are making money without any authorization. The corrupt politicians, the corrupt bureaucrats, and the sand traders.
There's some incentive, of course, for countries turning a blind eye to this. There's a real push for development, which is helping to develop their own economies. And so that's really fueled their demand for sand. In somewhere like Asia, these rivers are monsters. They're what we call mega rivers, the world's biggest rivers. And that's what we've been doing quite a lot of research on recently. You know, it's a pretty tricky one, right? We can see things here and there. We've got some observations on the ground, but it's not a clear picture.
think we know more about some parts of the surface of Mars than we do about many of these rivers that we really need to monitor.
So that's why we're doing the research. The challenge for us is there isn't an organisation, an umbrella organisation, that monitors the amount of material that's coming out. A large team of us, academics and scientists, acting as sort of investigators, and we're trying to build baselines of what's happening to things like the riverbanks, a mechanism to monitor illicit sand mining. Jim, why don't you butt in? What is the situation on the ground at the moment?
Just got a couple of examples I was going to show you guys today. So the one on the screen now is actually a smaller river up in the very north-east of Bangladesh. And you can just see as we run through time that essentially the whole of that riverbed gets mined out. And the valley now is really completely devastated.
Sand mining impacts tend to be felt quite locally. The question then is, globally, why does this matter? As you scale up from that and think about it more collectively, concrete uses cement. Cement production uses vast quantities of CO2. So this whole industry is exacerbating climate change. In principle, the licenses given out to these operators should be policed. In reality, it appears to be more self-reported by the sand miners. And in Bangladesh, there's huge quantities of sand ripe for being exploited.
In Bangladesh, we are witnessing a boom in the construction industry, which actually means Bangladesh at the moment is not exporting sand. At least that information is not there in the public domain. But definitely countries who do not want to destroy their own environment will be relying on Bangladesh because enforcement is very weak here. And if there is more demand for sand, if there is more demand on the rivers to supply sands for international players, the entire river ecosystem of the country will simply collapse.
Globally, the majority of sand mining is used locally, used for buildings within country, but some countries have pretty much exhausted their supplies of sand. A good example of that is Singapore. We're talking about a country that, after exhausting their own sand supplies in the 1960s, tends to make sure that there are ways of getting hold of this resource. We've only got official figures to go on, but of course that doesn't tell the full story.
We can already start seeing a lot of the sand. Up ahead, you've got quite a lot of sand coming up. You can see that based on the colors that they're coming from different parts, and it's quite hard to know which is from where. For me, I've gone through this many times without thinking about the issues that are related to sand. The average Singaporean wouldn't be thinking about this in a day-to-day basis. But you can see that all of this is fenced out. There is a lot of fencing there, someone who is guarding the space. I started looking into sand about a year and a half ago. I've worked in the field of sustainability and had to do research around trade data. I was told very early on in my research that Singapore is getting its sand that's clean, it's legally sourced, so you shouldn't ask too many questions, which piqued my curiosity. Singapore is the world's largest importer of sand. Singapore is a tiny country with very few natural resources. So our growth is very much reliant on land reclamation. It's essentially what land reclamation is. It's using sand to extend your shores to make more land and expand the country. What is taken from other countries as sand is made into land. We have increased our size by at least about 22% in the last just 60 years, from 1960 to now. It enabled Singapore to grow, to become the economy that it is today. And think about that. That is a massive amount of sand.
Singapore, once they depleted their own resources, were importing sand from a host of other countries. Vietnam, Cambodia, for example.
But most of these countries, one by one, have started banning or slowing down their supply of sand to Singapore. Mainly because immense environmental impacts, and also partly because a lot of these countries, they've needed sand for themselves.
But of course, Singapore still has a desire for sand and in this resource. So now they actually use sort of third parties and intermediaries to actually trade the sand. So it's quite difficult to know exactly where the sands come from.
When I first started looking into this topic, as I was going into it, I wanted to figure out where is all the sand taken from. But when I was emailing people to ask for interviews, a lot of people either didn't respond or wrote back to say, well, they have signed a State Secrets Act, telling them that they're not allowed to talk about it. People are silent because they want to be, and also people are silenced.
So is this restricted to people? It's all fenced up, I see security.
Yeah, it is. This is securitized as well. I think we should go, but I just want to kind of take a look from the side.
I don't know if we can go in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Turn around. Something's coming.
Do you believe that there's any illegal movement of sand into Singapore? Why are there fences? Why is it so protected?
So I spoke to a couple of civil engineers, so they would have access to different forms of data, from what I understand. When countries start banning their exports to Singapore, that means that all the plans Singapore has had in order to grow its landmass is disrupted. And I think this is where a lot of shady things happen. We don't have all the parts of the story, but what we do know is there's a disparity in the amount of sand in terms of what is being registered as leaving the country versus what is registered as entering Singapore. Exports to Singapore is about this much, but the import data for Singapore is this much. And that means that there is illegality in the supply chain. But who does it?
Trade statistics are very interesting. There are some gray zones where boundaries are blurred. So exports of sand, extraction of sand might be done illegally, and hence some exports are not reported. They know how to bypass customs. They know how to cleanse the data. So exports might be illicit, but imports are fully licit. Because sand is perfectly legal. It's a legal commodity, right? So it's not like narcotics or guns that immediately trigger reaction from an importing country. To my knowledge, there is no international institution, organization that looks at these discrepancies. That's what makes it so attractive. Criminals, they look for niches. Sand is a perfect niche. The less attention, the better.
To be very honest, I was a bit concerned about my safety. Investigation into unregulated sand mining can be dangerous. People were killed, people have been harassed, people have been intimidated, people have been physically assaulted if they were opposing illegal sand mining.
সুনামগঞ্জের তাহিরপুর উপজেলায় কামাল হোসেন নামে স্থানীয় এক সাংবাদিককে গাছের সাথে বেঁধে
কামাল হোসেন জানান সকালে জাদুকাটা নদী থেকে অবৈধভাবে বালু ও পাথর উত্তোলনের ছবি তুলতে গেলে নির্যাতন করে এবং ক্যামেরা, মোবাইল ফোন ও মোটরসাইকেল ছিনিয়ে নেয়।
তিনি এখন সুনামগঞ্জ সদর হাসপাতালে চিকিৎসাধীন আছেন।
হামলা আমার এই বয়সে আমি দেখিনি। যেদিন আমার সাথে টর্চার হয়েছে ফেব্রুয়ারি 1 তারিখ, পূর্বে থেকে আমার ইনফরমেশন দিতেছে বিভিন্ন লোক, আমার সোর্স আছে, গ্রামবাসীরা যারা নদীর পার কাটতেছে, ইয়ে করতেছে, অবৈধভাবে ভালো তুমি করতেছে, তাই এটা নিয়ে একটা নিউজ করা লাগবে। আর এটা মাথাত না নিয়ে আইসা ক্যামেরাটা নিয়ে আমি ওই জায়গায় নদীর পাড়ে যাই। প্রায় 1.5 শতাধিক কোয়ারি, ওইখানে প্রায় 1.5 শতাধিক কোয়ারি করে নদীর পার কেটে প্রশাসনিক নিষেধাজ্ঞা অমান্য করে আমি ওই জায়গায় প্রায় 10-12টা স্ন্যাপ নেই। আর তারা প্রায় 15-20 জনের একটা গ্রুপ বাজার থেকে খবর পেয়ে গেছে। যাওয়ার পরে আমি আসার পথে আমার পথ আটকায় আমার বিভিন্ন গালাগালি, শালার ফুট তুই এই জায়গায় আসছস করে, ফুট করে চলে আসো, ছবি তুলে নিউজ করে দেশ। আমরা এরকম 2 হাত এরকম বাইদা, এরকম একটা গাছের সাথে বাইদা রাখছে, প্রায় তা দিয়ে কূপ মারে, কূপ দিয়ে এখানে আঘাত করে এবং সারা শরীরে আঘাত করে, রড মট বিভিন্ন জিনিস দিয়া। আমি তো কনফিউজ ছিলাম না যে আমার এরকম করবে, ঘটনা করবে। আমি এলাকার ছেলে, এলাকায় কীভাবে নদীর পার কাইটা এবং জমির মধ্যে কোয়ারি করে একটা বালি তুলতেছে। মূলত এইগুলোর ছবি তুলতে আনতে গিয়েই আমার উপরে অ্যাটাক হয়েছিল, আমার মারধর করছিল। এই ইস্যুটা নিয়ে কথা বলতে তো স্বাভাবিক, একটু এখনো ভয় আছে, মনের মধ্যে তো ভয় আছে, কিন্তু ভয় থাকলে কি হবে? সাংবাদিকতা তো ভয়ে বা সাহসে নিয়ে, ভয় নিয়ে কাজ করা। সবাই একসাথে রিপোর্ট করলে বা সবাই একসাথে যদি এর বিরুদ্ধে প্রতিবাদ করে রিপোর্ট করা হয়, তখন এটা বন্ধ করা সম্ভব আমার মনে হয়। যারা বাইরের দেশে থাকে তারা তো আসলে আইসা দেখতেছে না যে এটা বালিটা কোন জায়গা থেকে উত্তোলন করতেছে। এটার বিষয়ে যদি বেশি বেশি রিপোর্ট করা হয়তো, সাংবাদিকরা বা বিভিন্ন সংস্থা আছে, রিপোর্ট করা হয়তো, তখনও বুঝতে পারতেন।
Although the law is in favor of the villagers, local people are scared now to speak against the sand miners because they see that the law enforcing agencies, the local politicians, the corrupt bureaucrats, they are out there to silence opposing voices against illegal sand mining. Then that is happening so frequently elsewhere in the world.
It's really important that the global community of experts, whether that's academics and scientists or policymakers, whatever it might be, it's really important that we all talk. The data that we've got at the moment is quite preliminary, but we're developing some really cool techniques to start tracking vessels.
Yeah, so to get a picture, we need to track vessels between different satellite images.
So we have a couple of snapshots here, and as you can see, the yellow rectangles show locations of vessels that were detected by our model.
Yeah, we can see that, Magda.
Heat maps of vessel activity.
Bit of a free-for-all.
This is just to illustrate that this use of artificial intelligence has high potential for detecting the vessels within rivers.
So to put it into context, previously we didn't really have any understanding of what was operating on the water. Now, with some uncertainty, we can get estimates of the activity on the water.
So what's the future of this project?
There's just been a huge cut in the funding, and it is sensitive to us because we're literally just finding out how much money we've lost and this sort of thing. So the future for this type of research, really unfortunately, isn't looking great at the moment. There's a risk that some of the work we're doing is going to have to actually stop, and really that leads to this possibility that sand mining basically increases in the future because there's less monitoring of it.
There is no hard data. We rather rely on sparks of information from here and from there. Based on these sparks, we try to build a complete picture. Of course, scientists are not criminologists, right? Once they detect some signs of problems, the next question is what to do with this. Whom to alert in this case? Who has incentives to pay the cost?
It's very easy to sit here and say, sand mining's bad, shouldn't be done, let's stop it. But the reality, of course, is that we're part of that insatiable appetite, infrastructure development, concrete, all the mineral extractions, etc.
We are just keeping using this material as if it's not going to come to an end.
If a sand is extracted from a lake, from a river, without observing any norms or rules, it might have terrible consequences on the environment in a huge area. Usually it's these consequences that trigger attention of media. Solution comes after the problems occur, and then it's too late.